interests of Germany who want to sell their Mercedes cars and Audis and all to Chinese and make money. But overall, European Union is leading in doing business with China. But as Germany has a say, as Germany has a stake, and they can maneuver their way through, that is why you see this dilly-dally of European Union as such with the China. Now coming to this part, this is a very, very important development because there are two aspects to it. One is the technical aspect, one is the commercial aspect. Now what we have seen, Vineet, everybody in the world is boycotting Chinese equipment, 5G, 4G, whatever you call it, Huawei, ZTE, nobody wants a Chinese equipment. Everybody is fearing what Chinese companies are actually about to do. Now, if you look at any electronic equipment, the problem with electronic equipment is, or the Chinese influences, if you buy electronics from them which can do networking, you have a problem. If you're buying agarbattis from them, you can stop tomorrow. No, there is no residual. There's no residue left. But if you buy this electronic equipment and especially telecom equipment from that connects millions of people. So by that logic, they get access to the data of these millions of people. They get access to the information of these millions of people. But there is one missing piece in the whole puzzle: chip. Without a chip or without a processor, what we commonly call it, no electronics equipment works today. After hardware, the heart of the system is the chip. The processing capability, your data processing capability is determined by the chip. Now look at the chip manufacturers of the world. Predominantly, number one is Intel, number two is Samsung, and it is predominantly market dominated by Americans, Koreans, Taiwanese, and some Europeans. Incidentally, in top 15, in top 15 chip manufacturers of the world, there is no Chinese company. And China knows it very well. If you don't have chips, whatever you make in the Huawei, ZTE, tomorrow even that may not work in the whole world. So what is China doing? As the world is increasing the pressure, they are trying to find a backdoor entry. Viniji, backdoor entry. What are they doing? They are trying to fool the world. Let's try to acquire these chip manufacturing companies. So we might see a product that's made in France, but we will not go and deep see where is the chipset from, where is the processor from. Now the processor might be from a Chinese owned or a Chinese controlled company. Now what is this called? Nexperia is one of the top 15 semiconductors of the chip manufacturers in the world. They are using this company to acquire a lot of other companies with it, their customers, and increase the dependence of a lot of international products on China, get into their supply chains through the back door without letting the world know how much of you are indirectly, without knowing you are depending on China. Now, if I buy a laptop next time, I used to only bother it is a Chinese or it is American or it is French. Now I have to also look at the chipset because this is the eye-opener. If the product might be American, but the chipset is Chinese, then there's a bigger concern. Because through chipset, you can control a lot number of features. And how many ports you accumulate in a chip, what kind of software you load in a chip, God only knows that. Chipset has absolute control. It's like a heart or brain of a system. You can control anything to everything with a chipset. So this is a ploy of a backdoor entry. You're starting through Nexperia and slowly will try to move the chain. That will ensure two things. One, your Huawei ZTE will still survive amidst knowing what you are doing. Secondly, when world is boycotting and dumping your equipment, in my opinion, nothing on electronic, networking and telecom should be bought from China because they have a huge residual impact. You cannot get them out of your network. So what are they finding? Back road. Why don't I start controlling the chipsets? If I control the chipsets, I control the equipment. When Taiwanese manufacturers are 4th or 5th in the world, why does China need to do these stunts? Because by this stunt, you enter the European markets. You find another way to get into European homes. You find another way to steal their data. You find another way to swoop on them, to influence their decision making. It is not a normal thing. That is why Prime Minister Johnson has asked nobody less than the NSA to look into it. Otherwise, $160 million to kuch bhi nahi hota. Why should the British Prime Minister be bothered for a $160 million sale? The problem is, what is the intention behind the sale? Intention is same, good, old Chinese intention. Steal data, dependence, and dominance. That is the end game we need. Dependence, dominance through dependence. And this time, chor darwaza.
Absolutely. And Prasoon, in fact, Boris Johnson said something which really took me by surprise. He said something which India has been.
Because Germans at the end of the day make money from China for sure. While as Milan, the back-end industry is in China, for France, some back-end industry in China. But the bigger problem here is we need, if you look at the semiconductor industry, why I told you, if you stop buying leather.
Yeah, can you hear?
Stop buying leather from China, it's a small issue. There's no residual effect. The point I'm trying to make again and again, electronics, telecom, and anything to do with networking has a residual effect. If Airtel buys Chinese equipment, my CP, my customer premises equipment is also Chinese. Imagine how many millions of homes will have Chinese equipment. So these are the caution which the world needs to be very careful about. But let me go back. Why Chinese are interested in the semiconductor, Vineet? $517 billion of revenue last year, 8.8% CAGR. Market cap of $5 trillion. Number one player Intel, number two Samsung, number three are Taiwanese. And today we have good relation with Samsung, we have good relation with Americans both. So somewhere down the line, China is also feeling that if India takes on the leap and takes the most critical component of electronic manufacturing, so-called edge of Chinese technology, so-called edge of dominance of the world will be over. These Huawei's and ZTEs can become antiques. If tomorrow they don't get semiconductors or chips, they are a history. We need no software works without this. As I told you, technically this is the heart and mind of the system. There are another things what you have to understand. Look at this company, Xperia. This has offices in 20 countries. So in 20 countries it will have customers. So if they acquire this company, they get customers in 20 countries. So 20 more countries get entrenched into Chinese supply chain. The world is talking about decoupling, but Chinese are trying to forcefully entrap you into their supply chains by buying critical industry components. Another thing I want to make, why don't we identify strategic industries? Let's say for MOD, I know from my experience, not even a connector made in China is brought. If that kind of a thing the world does not propel in the strategic industry of telecom, electronics, and electrical, wherever you have residual effect, you are bound to have trouble. We were importing 800 crores of agarbattis from China. One day we decided, go to hell, we are not importing anything, we made our own. But what about if you have tons of equipment lying here and there? How do you manage that? And the last point I want to make is, Vineet, what Mr. Boris Johnson is telling the world is highlighting an issue, and what you are brilliantly doing, Vineet. I congratulate you for doing this. You are telling the country, you're telling countrymen and the world, a backdoor entry, a silent tunnel is being carved into our homes through chipset, through processor by Chinese. This is a bit of hostile strategic takeover of European assets, European companies to entrench your and my home. We have thrown Huawei and ZTE out of our 5G trials. Now, what if they do this round robin? We might be buying a French equipment, but it's what we'll discover, the chipset is Chinese. So this is a very strategic issue, and it's a national security issue. Boris Johnson says it's a national security issue. Tell me if it's a national security issue for UK, why not for India? Why not for France? Why not for Germany? Are these people sleeping? Do they want Chinese chipsets in their drawing rooms and bedrooms and in their defense installations? Then they will wake up. Or you are trying to be that ostrich syndrome. Hide your hand in the sand and say, oh, this equipment is American. But what about the chipset? Goddamn, it's Chinese. It doesn't matter where equipment comes from. When I buy my next equipment, I have to look at the equipment, and I need to look at my chipset, I need to look at my chipset. This is the awakening call for me.
Okay.
Even I need to think about this for today. Good work, Vineet. Congratulations on bringing this up.
Thank you, Sumit. Appreciate the compliment. Let me try and reconnect with Ravi once again. Ravi.